impossible, but I'm still alive.
That's the spirit.
God bless him. You gotta let your imagination run wild.
Once we got here, we realized we could kick it into another space.
The movie looks unlike anything that people have seen.
I love the kind of noir feel of it, and it seemed like a real challenge.
If I want something, I'll just take it.
It was like this really great, sexy film noir, but really edgy and fun.
It is a love story. Love of adventure and New York City and beautiful women.
Hands behind your head.
You sure about that? I really loved Sin City, and I was really taken by 300. I was like, oh, this dude's got something going on.
Something's going down, could be octopus big.
When Frank Miller calls you up and says, you want to do a movie, here's a man who's a master in another visual medium, and you want to see what he can do.
We are to take Frank's artwork and bring Central City to life. We have to do the next evolution of this comic book movie.
Green props, green floors, and green everything.
This is fun.
I was like, oh man, hey, I believe in your vision, so anything I can do to expand on that, let's do it.
You're not making this easy.
And you're going to get romance and adventure. You're also going to get a very different looking kind of movie that I think is taking the digital approach a step further. Imagine your job being to look at a blank page, know that whatever you put on it was there to tell a story in words and pictures. And suppose just by accident you're a genius and you have to crank out 7 pages a week. Well, there you've got Will Eisner.
He definitely is one of the originators. He created so many of the conventions of comics.
His spirit was a newspaper section that was the work of a young man with a virtually free license to do whatever he wanted.
Will Eisner introduced cinematic techniques to comic book pages. He became the director and the lighting designer. He brought in new angles and perspectives, lighting like we had never seen in comics before. Nobody saw this stuff in comics before. Nobody.
Will Eisner was a real mentor to Frank.
They had very different perspectives, but they loved each other, and they would clash in so many different ideas.
I think they both admired each other because they were both amazing, unique talents.
There's no way I could imagine doing the work I do without having had him as a teacher.
The history of the spirit as a comic book is extraordinary, and then when you layer on that, having Frank Miller direct it and write it, it's an extraordinary opportunity.
I've been a Frank Miller geek for a very long time, through Dark Knight and the Sin City series and the 300 and everything else.
He is an amazing writer himself. Action. And another revolutionizer of comics.
The biggest lesson I learned from Will was that the story was the most important part of any entertainment form, that without it you really had nothing else, and all these dazzling angles and beautifully drawn characters sprang from a central sense of story. Spirit is a fascinating character, mainly because it was written without question for adults, and was never really a kiddie comic.
Damn, I've got no time for this. My city screams. She needs me.
Spirit is sort of in every man.
Not right now. I'm kind of busy.
99% of this guy is just a regular guy on the street. Anybody could be him.
Will Eisner wanted to create something that was about a hero of the city, a hero of a neighborhood, not somebody like Superman or Captain Marvel or Wonder Woman out to save the world.
When his editor said, "Where's his costume?" he whipped out his brush and put a mask on him. And so we ended up with the Spirit.
Marry me?
Just doing my job, sir.
We know that he is actually Denny Colt.
All my life, all I wanted to be was a good cop, but that's all changed.
Denny Colt was a cop who was shot dead and mysteriously came back to life and now has unusual powers of healing.
You're a mess. 3 bullets across the deltoid and
They went
chest.
straight through me. Hardly took any meat.
Sans Serif is the childhood sweetheart of the Spirit.
This I keep as a souvenir. The rest goes to the man who can get a message to the octopus. She loves shiny things, as she calls them, and she loves diamonds.
Sans Serif.
She broke his heart, and I think in response, he's just been sort of a player.
You're in love with every woman you meet.
Come on, son, you can't take your eyes off the ladies.
Mon amour.
He's a superhero. Every woman has to fall in love with him.
Enough of this frog talk. I don't understand it. Paris, give me his toes.
The octopus is the spirit's nemesis.
There is nothing I like better than kicking your ass all night long. Well, except maybe eggs.
As the spirit brings order to the world, the octopus brings chaos.
Will Eisner had a great sense of humor. There is evil and there's danger, but there's also an element of comedy.
His characters were colorful, they were textured, they were layered. His villains, his villainesses,
Who the hell are you?
were the greatest group of femme fatales ever created in the comics.
You are a common criminal.
There's nothing common about me. You followed the breadcrumbs right to us.
At the time when people were really putting women in that kind of domestic box, Will was writing these female characters that were real femme fatales and giving them a lot of power over spirit.
It was really revolutionary for comic books at that time.
Is every woman in this hellhole out of her goddamn mind?
No, sir. We're just equipped.
Will's work will always endure. The character was reckless, but so is the artist. So what I want to do more than anything in this movie is get back in touch with that sense of experimentation that he brought to the spirit. There's a curious kind of double-sided coin at work with digital. As much as it speaks of the future, it also can bring back some values of the past. Not just the comic book values of the strange-looking city and the wild lighting, but also the values of classic noir.
In essence, every shot in the film is a special effect because we are compositing backgrounds into almost every shot.
The inspiration I took from what Frank said to me about Eisner's attention to detail is that I didn't have to build a complete city. You know, I didn't have to build a city where I could turn around every nook and cranny and see something new, but instead that I could express a lot about what this whole city is about with one small detail.
When everything seems possible, that's exactly when you've got to bring out your inner fascist and say, okay, I can do this, but I won't. And pick exactly what will achieve your goals.
Film is all about minimalism. It's all about taking things away. Film isn't about adding, it's about subtracting.
There's silhouetted people in silhouetted backgrounds, or they're edge-lit people in sketchy backgrounds. You're trying to draw your eye to the main event and suggest the world beyond. The same way Frank suggests everything.
Thank you, sir.
Half of what Bill is doing on this movie with lighting is taking light away, not adding it. The same thing's true with Frank. He draws a beautifully detailed pencil sketch and then proceeds to get out his black ink and cover over 97% of it with black. And yet the fact that there was a drawing underneath there means that the silhouette that is left is informed by all these little details that that had to be there in order for the thing to work, but are now just implied rather than directly expressed.
So there's a lot of areas where a wall might fall off completely black, but we never let anything be completely black. A matte painter will actually paint full detail brick under there, and we bring it down because it's amazing when you get it on the film, that subtle variation in the blacks can actually show up, and the viewer can tell that it's ink. We call it inked out. So it's never okay to have something solid black. It's always good to have some detail there in the shadows, even if it's barely perceptible.
My city, she's always there for me.
There are some amazing voiceover sequences where the spirit kind of expresses his love letter to the city. Luckily for me, those were some of the very first sequences that the orphanage pre-visualized. Frank had storyboarded out a sequence called On My Way.
First, I draw it the way I saw it, and then I draw it the way I thought Will would see it. I'd always go with Will's version.
He's basically expanded on Eisner's drawings and really put sort of his Frank Miller touch on it, which is, you know, a much darker, more violent, more, you know, raw version.
Frank did some drawings, some pen and ink, and they show a level of stylization that we built upon.
He just knows the smallest amount of information you need in order to successfully tell the story. And that's this kind of visual minimalism that I think is the reason that everyone always suspected that Frank Miller's artwork was so cinematic, even though they didn't really understand how to bring it to the screen, really, probably until Sin City.
Sin City was like the 300-pound gorilla in the room with us, and so what do you do with it? So basically what we decided to do was go further, make it even more extreme, more in line with his drawings than even Rodriguez did. I wasn't attracted to this movie to do something explicable. I wanted to see how inexplicable one can be and still evoke feelings and involve the audience. How far can you go?
You're with the gun as you were before.
He draws his own boards, and you get in and you see everything, and you realize, wow, this guy's really got it all in his head. It's pretty unbelievable. And then we shoot what he draws.
What I told Bill and Stu and everybody else early on was that I don't solve problems, I create them. And so I would just come up with images that I wanted. And it was up to these wizards to make them happen. So I was a kid in a candy store.
We've always been telling comic stories, but we've never actually been able to show the art in the way we are able to now.
If this is the wrong box, I'll kill you myself.
And that's one of the great reasons for using the whole green screen technique, because by marrying art with the actual live action, we will get the experience as a comic fan that we got reading the books.
It's the kind of thing where it really gets you excited as a performer and excited for this whole new generation and this whole new wave of filmmaking.
They knew it was going to be a green screen movie, but how green it was going to be, that was, you know, that was up for grabs. Will we build any sets?
I was really nervous coming in because I've never really worked in a full-on green screen.
You know, they have me running down the street, killing, you know, Samuel L. Jackson, shooting him. And when I got here, nobody's here.
Honey, I'm just an altar cocker. You gotta give me something to work with here.
You're a mess. 3 bullets across the deltoid
They went straight through me. Hardly took any meat.
It's very hard in a movie when it's the entire room you're walking into, it's a green box, and there's nothing in the room to indicate the space you are in.
This is more about the actor, not about, because you don't see anything, just green.
The main thing that I've learned from the other side of the camera is that you're very alone when you act. And you need constant orientation.
Okay, we want one more. Hold it away as you swing.
Part of my job is to kind of sell that green screen to everybody, to just kind of remind everybody, that's gonna be awesome later, you know, and hopefully they trust me.
I'll be seeing you again right soon.
You're giving me a real headache, Octopus.
The green screen, if anything, seemed to have a liberating effect. It was almost like working in black box theater.
But in another way, it does require them to really extend themselves. They're really creating the reality at that point.
I'm sort of a veteran of the big green room because I did 3 Star Wars movies. So I kind of don't worry about there not being anything there.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better, pretty boy. Yeah.
I let my imagination run and do the things that I need to do to create a reality of my own that they can draw around and do things to.
You're not making this easy.
I've got a star in the head, an arrow in the chest, machine gun 10 times, run over by a truck. I mean, it goes on. Every day I come in, it's a new Frank's like, we're gonna kill you this way. I'm like, okay.
When I was reading the script, there's a ton of underwater stuff for my character. And I don't know how to swim.
Oh, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Everything looks like you're underwater, even when you're above water.
So I was reading the script and I'm like, how do I tell these people I don't know how to swim? So I was real casual. I was like, so about the swimming stuff, like, is it gonna be like a huge tank, like Titanic, like how they shot Titanic, you know? She's like, no, it's gonna be all, there's gonna be no water. You're gonna be in a harness and there's not gonna be any water at all. I'm like, no water? So I got away with that one.
I know that some actors that I know get frustrated with green screen, but I just see it as I'm like, 5 years old again, and I'm like out in the backyard making things up in my head.
It feels like theater to me, or like class, like acting class, where you can kind of be free to like try out anything.
It was a lot better than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be really scary.
On this set, it's like you're in a sandbox playing around with other people.
Central City and the spirit and the women and the villains really do prove a theory of mine that the best comic book art involves an artist drawing the stuff that he loves to draw the most. If you picture New York between Bank Street and Houston Street, take the parts of each decade where the city showed its personality the best, you've got Central City.
Do you know where you are?
Sure.
What city?
Central City, USA.
What year is it?
This year.
If you're looking for any particular thing, you just go back through history and you find the one that looked the coolest and you use that one. So we've got people talking on cell phones and then getting into a police car from the 50s.
It's got elements of the 40s, but it's a modern world. It is what we call contemporary noir.
What Stu and his company have created is the Central City of my dreams.
We've got literally exactly one of Eisner's, signature splash pages with the sewer grate and all the interesting trash pouring into it.
I really wanted the best grate that anybody'd ever seen, and because it was an Eisner trademark.
So you pick and choose bits and pieces of a real city so that it has that kind of tangible reality and messiness that a real urban environment does.
This is a shot that incorporates a number of different elements. We have a plate, and then we have a matte painting plate. We have a 3D snow element, and then we have a CG truck, and a element that was shot on our little snow table of me pushing a little spoon with a piece of cardboard on it through baking soda to get this element for the front. All those elements all come together into this shot.
And what you wind up with is Central City.
We always look for heightened reality in this kind of a film because a comic, you want the comic fans to really enjoy the movie, and sometimes just simply filming a story that comes from a comic isn't enough. You want to give it that look, that style.
When you're working on a stylized movie like this, the color correction has such an important role to play in the final look of the film.
We sort of worked our way into colors, knowing that you want to be noirish, black and white is your goal.
I never even want to see you again. I hate you, Stan.
So the color is used to show an emotional truth in each scene. And most abruptly and plainly when the reborn Denny Colt is walking against the gigantic red sun. The red is there to represent his anger. So is a rather amazing scarlet on his tie.
There are flashes of color, the red tie, and in the color correction at the end of the day, they'll be able to manipulate how much color they want in the piece.
In other places with sand, for instance, she has a very gold motif throughout her that Bill Pope came up with.
I knew that they were opening a locket. It occurred to me that the locket could be gold, the memory could be a golden memory. So we played with that, we massaged it a little bit, so that's why the flashbacks to sand are gold.
Color tends to be sometimes an afterthought in a show. I've seen many artists get really bummed out when the shot that they've been preserving all these details in to get to the show and they realize that it's all been crushed down or all been blown out, and it really, really helps to have that final sort of look while you're working on the shot.
And I think as a testament to Bill's precision and artistry, we are making very few adjustments to that now in the final stages of it.
And now Stu and I are working intensely to carry this through on the whole thing so that it doesn't feel like a primary color comic book, but the color has an emotional punch at every turn. Bill and Stu are terrific partners. It's like, you know, we're 3 points in a triangle.
Almost invariably, if anyone had a question for me about what something should look like, the answer was sitting there on the comic book page. And that's true for us with Frank's storyboards, but it's even, I think, more true with Eisner's artwork.
The big question that comes up is, are you being faithful enough? Are you showing enough respect? If people want a big, dusty old monument, probably the first obstacle they'd have to erecting it would be that Eisner would rise from the grave and prevent it from ever going up. He didn't believe in standing still. If I did a quaint movie set in the 1940s of the spirit, I would definitely lose the next argument I had with him, and it wouldn't be pretty.
It's absolutely one of the most creative processes I've ever been through, and I hope I get to work with Frank 100 more times. Silken Floors is the most beautiful woman ever.
It's just fun to be able to do a full-on fantasy, and everybody looks super cool.
It's been really creative, and I've gotten to live out certain fantasies on this movie that I haven't gotten to live out before.
At least die bravely, rodent.
I think it's fun.
You want to help? Find me a lead to the octopus.
The great thing about working with Frank is that he comes to every scene and he says, oh my God, this is gonna be a really cool scene. His excitement is like a little kid.
It's a fun place to be, you know, it's kind of an actor's playground.
Action!
I'm looking forward to seeing how what we did here connects to what he has in his mind.
I feel like breaking all kinds of rules. I have no idea what to expect, which is exciting and totally terrifying.
Keep the mask on. Something tells me it might be better that way.
What Bill and Frank are doing is really trying to capture what Eisner did early on.
I think Frank hears Will in his head on a regular basis.
We have really gotten something beyond my wildest dreams.
I know how much love he's poured into this, and I'm just so excited for the world to see what it is that Frank Miller can do.
Working in movies is more than anything just convinced me that I love nothing more than storytelling. And, you know, as long as there's a way to tell one, I will. And if I've got to tell it around a campfire, I will.
She is my city. And I am her spirit.